Welcome to The Tech Ranch, live and local here on Super Talk 1270. The latest gadgets, online security, websites and apps, social media, and so much more. How can technology help you? Let's find out. It's time for The Tech Ranch on Super Talk 1270.
From our studios in beautiful Mandan, North Dakota, along the mighty Missouri River, here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
NASA has been busy the last few weeks,
at
least in the media eyes.
Get ready for that trip to Mars.
They are, yeah. They're preparing for Mars. Yes,
goody.
Mars. Yeah, I know. It should be a lot of fun. I think you can buy seats, actually. Or at least put your name on a plaque or
Now,
something.
we're not talking about the Branson thing. That's a whole different
That's a
kettle
whole
of fish.
different
That's
deal,
a whole
yeah.
different
Yeah,
thing,
we'll talk about that a little bit, too.
Okay.
And, of course, the new Horizon space probe is moving towards Pluto. Are we ready to usher in a new era of space travel?
And there was that one in Virginia that was supposed to go up but never did, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's been all kinds of activity
I
with
used to
space
live not
travel.
far from there.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. So anyway, Miss Metaverse Kate Aquino will be joining us later to talk about the future of space travel. 3D printing is simply amazing with advances in prototyping and medicine in the news on almost a daily basis. But, of course, there's the dark side.
The dark side.
You should be playing that music right now, the Star Wars. Dome, dome, da-dome. Yep.
Oh, the Darth Vader music.
Yes, exactly. So Jim and I are going to be talking a little bit about the dark side of 3D printing. Of course, at the control panel, producer extraordinaire Jim Walsh.
Luke, I am your father. I am your father.
You've done better impressions.
Is CNN. Yeah. Never worked on old James Earl.
Yeah, he's got a great voice. He really does. So I haven't done a top 10 countdown for a long time. So I thought that today would be a good day to do that.
Okay.
And, of course, we're coming to the end of the year. So, of course, there's all kinds of countdowns that are going to start happening now. So I thought, it'd be kind of fun to maybe see what people have been looking up online as far as the top gadgets. Now, this would not be the top sales. So the numbers actually might be a little bit different between what I'm going to say now
We
and
actually kind of talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Kinda,
So
sorta.
anyway, the top 10 gadgets that have been looked up online, whether it's Google or Yahoo or whatever, number 10 is the Microsoft Surface Pro. Are you familiar with that, Jim? It's a tablet.
Oh, a tablet, okay.
Expensive tablet, actually. It runs anywhere from, I think you can get it on the low side about $500, but on the upper side about $1,300. So spendy tablet.
Up there.
But it runs Microsoft 8.1 now.
Up there where the air is rare.
Yes, yeah. And it's the Microsoft Surface Pro 3, I should say. So they've been around for a little bit of a while now. Number 9 was the Apple iPad Air.
Okay. Not
Number
what I've
8,
heard of.
yes. Number 8, you're gonna know all of these. I'm gonna guarantee you. In fact, there's only one in here that is actually there's two that are not kind of computer related. 8 is the Sony PlayStation.
Obviously.
So number 7 is the Kindle Fire by Amazon.
Yeah.
And I believe was this the first year of the Kindle Fire? I guess
it's the second year.
Second year? Okay. I guess I should probably,
Yeah.
because there was the Kindle, of course. So then the Kindle, you're right. I think it was a hot gift item last year as well for Christmas.
Yeah, I got a Nook last year.
Did you?
Yeah.
How do you like that?
It's okay.
Yeah? You read a lot on
it's
it?
okay. I do. I read a tremendous amount. I've
Okay.
read several entire books on the thing.
So do you buy books on it too, or do you?
Yeah.
Is there a ton? I think there's a ton that are for free
Oh,
too.
there's
aren't
a
there?
bunch of. Well, there's a few that are free. They're
Okay.
mostly the classics. Like I got Pride and Prejudice, which I am reading. I mean,
Okay.
I never thought I'd be into Jane Austen. But I thought, it's free. I might as well read it. So
Sure.
I'm reading it. Okay, it's interesting. I mean, it's a soap opera.
So do
it's fun.
and I should probably know more about this, but are the books generally cheaper when you buy them digital as compared to
As
if
a
you-
rule,
Okay.
they can be. A lot of them are a lot cheaper.
Okay, but there are some that are
Yeah.
maybe comparable in price too if you bought a printed version. Do you know or
Generally, everything is cheaper.
okay?
Some are more cheaper than others.
Okay,
put it
I
that way,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So
Your
then,
current bestsellers are cheaper, but they're not that much cheaper.
right.
Not like the classics and the old books.
So I wonder how the sales of I'm going to do a show on this. Actually, I'm very curious about this
Yeah.
now. Wonder how the sales of like actual books compare to like when a number one bestseller is out. How many of those are actual digital copies that are
Right.
sold compared to actual printed copies?
Well, I couldn't believe the difference. There was one textbook I had to get for this current semester.
Okay.
And the book itself was like $260 to rent, mind you.
Right.
And to get it, to rent it, or actually to buy it on online, $20.
Yeah. It's a big deal. Well, you think
Yeah.
about it. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into printing things, and if you can get it digitally, dramatic less.
It's kind of like they're
less costly.
encouraging you to do it this one particular way.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
They almost are. Yeah. So number 6 on the list is the Microsoft Xbox. So those two over the last year have switched a little bit because the PlayStation actually was the bigger deal last year.
Are you into games at all?
I'm not.
Gaming? Okay.
No.
Is there a real preference? I mean, most people, they thrive on they
I think
one or the other.
It's like Mac and PC. You know, it's the
Chevy
same thing.
and Ford,
Yeah, it's the same thing. I would imagine. I think some makers like Sony may have some different games over what
Right.
Microsoft may have, but generally speaking, the third-party game manufacturers produce for all formats. You know, so
As
you
a
can-
rule, are all the games available on one, available on the other?
as a rule, yes. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
The third-party ones will make those.
Right.
But I suppose, Microsoft will have a couple that they make specifically for the Xbox, and Sony does the same thing with the PlayStation. But I think after a while, they kind of cross over as well. If there's a game that's really popular, they don't want to lose the money because somebody else is using a different format. So, and you see that a lot with Mac and PC too. I mean, something comes out that's very popular, it generally goes across and is compatible in the other version.
So they're
later in the
both
future.
still selling like hotcakes.
They are.
Is there any indication at all that one may actually have the edge over the
Yeah,
other?
they actually Microsoft Xbox had 14 million in sales this year. I mean, that's 14 million units in sales. The Sony's PlayStation has 10 million in sales. So there. I mean, you think about that. That's 25 million units between the two of them in 1 year. That's pretty substantial.
But not quite like VHS and Beta. Not quite that.
No. There has never been. Well, yeah, it's amazing. I know this statistic, but believe it or not, 98% of all households had VHS.
Yeah.
That was actually higher than phone coverage at that time. So
I was living in Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and the guy I was living with, he had a Beta.
okay,
So we all thought, and this was back when nobody was really sure, and a lot of people thought the Beta should have had the edge.
should have, yes.
So we went out and we all bought a bunch of videos for it or rented them, and
Yep.
we bought Beta videos, and
Yep, and
they're
the
still
rest is
sitting in my
history.
basement
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
I've got Top Gun on Beta.
Wow.
It's kind of cool.
Well, you have to bring it over sometime. I actually have a beta
Yeah.
player, so that'd be fun to watch that. Number 5 on the list is the Apple iPod Mini or iPad Mini. Number 4 is the GoPro Hero. So the GoPro cameras, number 4 on the list. So then the top 3 isn't going to surprise anybody. Number 3 was the Samsung Galaxy Note 4.
Yeah.
Number 2 on the list is the Galaxy S5. And then the number 1 search for gadget of the year is the Apple iPhone 6. No surprise. But what's interesting about this is that the Galaxy S5 had twice as many sales as the iPhone 6 in Q3 of this year. So there's more interest online in the iPhone 6 than the Galaxy S5, but they outsold them. So
Things that make you go,
yes. So people are just more passionate, I think, about the iPhone and the iPads and that type of thing. So they go and look at them, and they're anxiously waiting for them. Those of us who are in the Droid world, there's another one coming out. Oh, it's not a big deal. So yeah, exactly. So after the break, everybody, Jim and I will go into the dark side of 3D printing. So come on back.
Right now, 28.
Your news leader, weeknights at 6 and 10. Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek at Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or TheTechRanch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank all the people who listen to us across the country and around the world on the Blueberry Network, the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. On our own app, Radio Pup. We're also on iTunes and TuneIn. So we're all over the place. So you can follow us wherever you like. I think we even are on the Roku now as well. So just if you want to hear the show again sometime in the future, just pop on any of those networks and you can hear us again. And Jim and I are going to be delving into the dark side of 3D printing. We talk a lot about 3D printing on this show. And 3D printing is literally going to change and is changing how we do things, especially in prototyping. Medicine is absolutely amazing what's going on there right now.
A lot of changes for the better, but not necessarily all of the changes are for the better.
And, you could take that argument to about anything that we do.
Yeah. Technology is a tool that can be used for diabolical purposes.
Right. But, you can even talk about water. We all need water to survive, but yet there are people who drown in it every year.
That's right.
So there are, the good things to things and, of course, the bad side of things. But we're going to delve into the bad side of things a little bit just to get people to think a little bit about what could possibly happen with 3D printing. And, the first thing is some of these may or may not be as big a deal, and I'm hoping in the future it'll get less and less. But 3D printers are energy hogs. I don't know if you knew this or not.
I kind of wondered about that.
Yeah, they are actually... They will consume 50 to 100 times more energy than a standard printer will.
Well, that makes sense, actually.
Yes, it does. But you think about that. But, and I'll put that into another perspective, though. If you're molding something or prototyping something, I would be very curious to see what the actual energy expenditure of the old process would go towards, prototyping something with a 3D printer. I just think that, it's not even in that realm. I think 3D printers probably save energy, but I'm just going after some of the things that people talk about online.
Maybe on a certain level, if you're talking about mass production, economy of scale and all that.
Yes, yeah. Then you probably don't want to be, at least at this time, but I would say that in the future, of course, the energy consumption of these devices are going to go down dramatically, just like everything else, as they get better and better at it. Yeah. Unhealthy air emissions. Have you ever melted or been around somebody who's melted plastic before?
Oh, yeah.
It is not first of all, it doesn't smell that great. Secondly, it really isn't the best to breathe. And what happens, if you can smell plastic, you're breathing that into your lungs, and it's difficult to get that I don't know if that aerosol type of plastic molecules. I would assume if you breathe enough of it, it can do some serious damage.
You
think about it.
Carcinogenic.
Because it's in a kind of an air molecule type of form as you're breathing it in, and of course it comes into your lungs and hardens there. Not a good thing probably. So that's something that you probably want to be aware of a little bit too. So if you're doing a lot of 3D printing and you can smell, the whatever, the vapors coming off or whatever.
The polymer.
Probably not a bad idea to have like a hooded system or something around it just to be safe, The reliance on plastics is another thing that a lot of people talk about.
Yeah.
But as a society, we rely on them anyway. I just don't see that being a big deal either. This one is interesting, though. The IP and licensing deals. They figure that the black market will dramatically emerge.
Yes.
I mean, you think about printing your own Disney figures.
Yeah, toys.
Yes.
All kinds
all
of
of this stuff. Somebody's going to take and they're going to 3D model something, put it online with a Mickey Mouse on it, and you'll be able to download it and print your own Mickey Mouse figurines or what have you.
Your own G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe is owned by the Hasbro company.
Right. So the challenge that these companies have, I think, is that, are they going to sell the 3D renderings of this? So maybe like a digital book. Maybe you can buy the Mickey Mouse or the G.I. Joe toy for $1 or $2 if you print it yourself, or you can go down to the store and buy it for $10. That might be where that will go, but they anticipate that it'll be a big deal. I mean, you think about when music became digital, and all the things that happened with music when a person could just literally download it online.
Right.
And it's still a big deal today, but not even close to what it used to be. So the industry adjusted, made some changes, and that type of thing. But I think that's going to be a big deal. Yeah, exactly. The Napster deal changed the world as far as music goes, And, of course, I'm going to save number 5 to the last thing here.
Oh.
Because that's one that we want to talk about a lot. Responsibility of manufacturers. One of the things that I think, if you print stuff, is it at the same specs that if you were to print a wheel for a bicycle,
right?
Okay, is it going to be strong enough, like you would if you were to buy a manufactured piece? And I think that's the challenge that a lot of people are going to have. Or if you're printing a part for a machine, it's plastic.
Yeah.
For the most part. Now, there are, of course, there's metal 3D printers. We're going to get into that a little bit. But if you're going to replace these parts with 3D printed things, you could run into some serious issues because if you bought the plans, let's say, Jim, you put the plans off for that part, okay?
Right.
I printed it, and then the thing failed because it's not strong enough or whatever.
Like a tire on a wheel, like you say, a wheel on the bicycle.
Yeah,
the kid gets on the bike and falls down
That's
because
correct,
it breaks.
because it breaks. Who's liable at that point?
Good question.
So there's a lot of things that need to be, the issues there need to be.
We know a lot of lawyers are just rubbing their hands in gleeful anticipation over that.
I am sure. And this is another one: bioprinting ethics and regulations. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of debate about stem cells and that type of thing in this country and around the world. Are we going to have the same issue? And I don't think so, but there might be some groups, whatever, that might not be so excited about the ability to print your own liver or print a new kidney or what have you in the future. Now, I think if you're using your own DNA and parts of your own body to create these things, which is basically what I think is going to happen, then I think you're okay. But if you're using, maybe... I'm trying to think of the best way to say this.
Harvesting from somebody else's.
Yes, or whatever, that would probably fall into some... Because you need raw material for this to happen. Where are the doctors and the scientists getting their raw material from? And that's the thing that you have to...
science fiction, Philip K. Dick country.
Yes, that's correct. So that's the thing you have to kind of worry about there, too, a little bit. But I think a lot of that stuff will iron itself out as we move forward. This is very interesting, and you and I have talked about this before, the possibility of printing drugs.
Printing, drugs.
Yes,
okay.
Because you have the ability to mix things with a 3D printer. So, I mean, are we going to run into scenarios now where, and I think in the pharmaceutical world, this is going to be amazing because they will, instead of stocking all of these different things, they will actually be able to print... let's say your prescription, they say you need 100 milligrams a day of this. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Maybe you don't need that much, Jim. Maybe you actually only need 60, but they prescribe 100 because that's the smallest amount that the manufacturer makes the pill. Okay. So the pharmacies will be able to print 60 milligrams or 80 milligrams, whatever. But then you take that to the dark side a little bit, and people might have the ability, drug dealers, whatever, might have the ability to actually print and manufacture unique new drugs or new combinations of things.
Well, there's also compounding where you combine certain drugs for people to have more than one need for something.
That's correct. So these technologies with 3D printing will be great, but there's also that dark side to it, too.
Yeah,
so
imagine a meth lab using one of those things.
That's exactly right. So you have to think about those a little bit. National security risks. I'm not really sure. I'm just reading over my notes here about where the security risks would be.
Well, in developing explosives.
I suppose. That's kind of probably what their National
Building
Defense
bombs
University
and whatnot,
wrote this. Yeah. You're right. Rockets, whatever, and the other thing that comes to mind is the safety of the items that come into contact with food. So a lot of people right now are printing plates and forks and all kinds of stuff, right? But the stuff that they're printing with isn't really safe for human consumption.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, I'm trying to think, drink a soda pop out of something that probably would be detrimental to your health, although some people might actually say that this soda I'm drinking right now, this plastic bottle, might be detrimental to my health. Well,
some people would say that the soda is detrimental to your health, but leaving aside that question.
Right. The container that it's in, the stuff that's in there leaches into the food that we drink or food things that we eat and drink or whatever. So you have to be careful with that, too. So those are some of the downsides to it. And probably the darkest side is the manufacturing of weapons.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to kind of leave that to the last year. You sent me a thing over the weekend about a gun.
The gun called Reason.
The gun called Reason, that's right. And this is actually a 3D printed gun from a metal 3D printer. So what's interesting about this is that this whole gun was printed with a 3D printer. The 3D printer cost about $500,000.
Right.
The one that printed this gun. A very, very cool looking gun, by the way. I mean, I got a picture of it here. I'm sharing it with Jim right now. You know,
it
and that's
looks to me like a regular Colt 45.
It is. I mean, without all the fancy stuff on it. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, with a 3D printer, it's an artistic type of expression too, and I get that part of it. And that's the wonderful thing about 3D printing is you'll be able to make amazing things with this stuff. But I guess the gun before this one that he had, he has shot over, what do you call it? He had another name for it. The 1911, I think it was. And
Colt 45 automatic 1911. That's the classic model.
Oh,
for the
okay.
Colt
Okay, so that's
45,
probably why he
yeah.
called it the 1911 then.
Yeah.
And anyway, he has fired that gun over 5,000 times, and it was printed with a 3D printer. So that is kind of scary. And the thing that really concerns me about this is that you and I can't go out and spend $500,000 on a 3D printer.
Yeah.
But a drug cartel thinks nothing. That is chump change to most of the drug cartels.
Yeah, they can get their hands on one.
Yes. And
believe
granted
they
that
can.
you can't, printing a gun isn't something like printing a photo where it takes a few seconds. It takes many hours, and probably a
Right.
gun takes days to print one. But if you have a half a dozen of them, you can print quite a few guns in a short period of time. So, you have to think about what's possible with this and how you're going to regulate this stuff, if we're going to regulate it. I would imagine that we're probably going to have to,
Well, again, economy of scale, the more of these printers you have, the cheaper it probably becomes
Right.
to print them.
Right. So you have to kind of, look at that and see. But anyway, I don't know. I'm still on the fence about the gun printing thing. I'm
Yeah.
I'm not a big gun person, but I understand people's rights to have guns.
Sure, me too.
And, this is just kind of a challenging thing right now, I think.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to figure this out. And I think our time to figure it out is weaning on us. I mean, we have to get this figured out pretty soon. All right, everybody, after the break, Miss Metaverse Kate Aquino will be joining us about space travel. So come on back.
Right now, 28.
You're never more than a few minutes from a weather update here on Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And joining us from New York City, where they don't make such great salsa.
New York City!
New York City! Miss Metaverse Kate Aquino. Kate, how you doing?
I'm doing well, but, we do have some pretty good salsa, I have to say.
We always laugh about that
How are you,
commercial.
Marlo?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm
Good.
pretty psyched for today's show.
Yeah, we have. We're going to be talking a little bit about space travel. I didn't get to one thing before the break there, and I wanted to talk a little bit about smartphones and how many are being stolen.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. There are estimates, and the official estimate is that in 2014 there will be over 1 million smartphones stolen in the United States. Now, unofficially, they figure it's 3.1 million. I guess over 2 million people decide not to report it, whether it's because they think they lost it or what the deal
Yeah.
is there. So, why do you think people are stealing smartphones, Kate?
Well, because of all the... It's expensive to buy phones now, and look at the contracts you have to get into. A lot of these iPhones, for instance, if you drop your phone or you don't have insurance, you go into a place like Best Buy, and even when I had the Geek Squad protection plan, and it still cost me $150 just to get the screen fixed if I drop it, you
Okay.
know, and I think that the phones they're expensive, and I think that people, unfortunately, are, not reporting these phones if they find a lost phone, and they'd rather just sell them online for profit.
So you think that's what's going on? They're either stealing phones to replace the phone that they have, or they're just resetting it back to factory new and selling them online?
That is happening, unfortunately. Actually, a friend of mine just lost her phone, and coincidentally, there's actually, well, it's good to say, okay, there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who are stealing these phones. On the other side, there's also a lot of people who are reporting phones being found.
Okay.
So, and my friend actually ended up finding her phone through a local community web board, and through this web board in our hometown, she actually ended up finding her phone. Someone actually reported it. So, yes, there are a lot of people who steal phones, but also at the same time, if you do lose your phone, I recommend that you do try to find some kind of boards, whether it be local moms boards or anything, because people do end up reporting what they find.
That's interesting. That is interesting. And, of course, there are some protection things you can do, too. Almost every phone manufacturer now has some way that you can send a signal to your phone via your computer to lock it out so people can't gather the information they have onto it and basically render it useless. Of course, you can track your phone, too, if you have these particular things in place. So I always highly recommend that people do that because there's nothing more disruptive. And in my opinion, it's even more disruptive than losing a credit card if you lose your phone, So.
Absolutely. You have your pictures on there and things like that. And a lot of the problems, too, is that, we have these security protection things like we have the fingerprint, we have passcodes to protect our phones. But at the same time, if we end up losing our phone, if someone does find it, it might make it a little bit harder for people to get back to you and get your phone back to you.
Yeah,
your phones
exactly.
Are locked.
Exactly.
So these are things to think about as well. But you're right. Find My iPhone has been very helpful to me. I've actually found my phone through Find My iPhone, which is a GPS tracking system that you have if you have your iCloud account and an iPhone. And these things do help. So, but unfortunately, yes, Marla, you're right. People do steal these phones, and they are making money online by selling them. And look at how many new websites have launched in the last 2 or 3 years. They're dedicated to selling used phones. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of those used phones aren't necessarily phones that are owned by their previous owner.
Yep, and I have, not that I've personally watched or seen somebody steal a phone, but I always wonder, I spend a lot of time in coffee shops, wherever, doing a lot of work, and people will get up from their table and leave their cell phone laying there or whatever, and people can just, and I've seen footage of this, people will just walk by and pick up a phone and just continue walking out, and nobody knows any different. I mean, it's just... Your phone is gone just that quickly. So a person has to take some time to protect your phone as well. I mean, you wouldn't leave your house without locking your door. You should probably treat your smartphone the same way.
Absolutely. Some of these phones cost up to $1,000. So you definitely want to take the necessary precautions against, losing them. And there are many programs that can help you, in case you do lose your phone, just like those, Find My iPhone and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I know we have a lot to talk about space travel. So give us a little update about the last week in NASA. What have they been up to? Right.
So did you hear about the Orion test flight?
Well, of course.
Well, I think everybody was pretty much excited this week. The Orion test flight was NASA's first small step towards space colonization and deep space travel. So the Orion test flight took off from Cape Canaveral. Originally, the flight was supposed to be on Thursday, but unfortunately, some strong gusty winds and I think a liquid oxygen valve was giving a couple of reasons why the flight was delayed up to one day, and then Friday was the actual launch day, and it was a successful flight. So it orbited around Earth. The Orion space capsule orbited around the Earth twice, and then dropped down into the Pacific somewhere around, I think it was maybe around noon Eastern Standard Time. So it was very exciting.
So what is their ultimate goal with colonization in space? I mean, do they have a place in mind that they want to colonize?
Well, SpaceX founder Elon Musk, he said himself that if humanity wants to survive and basically safeguard itself from some kind of devastation on Earth, then the ultimate goal is that we're going to have to become, we're going to have to colonize other planets. That's our future. That's pretty much where our future lies. If we want to make sure that, forbid something happens, like an asteroid or major earthquakes, or who knows what might happen in the future. But if we start colonizing these other planets, we could pretty much make sure that humanity will continue on, and it's probably in our best interest to start taking small steps now, like the Orion test flight, towards becoming a galactic civilization.
So are you thinking moon colonization, or are they really looking more at Mars?
Well, it seems that there are a lot of projects right now that are looking towards Mars, because while the moon is good for becoming a moon base and things like that, it's not very likely that we'd want to be able to actually colonize Mars, only because we can't terraform it the same way that we would be able to if we go to Mars. So a lot of the long-term plans are to be able to go to Mars, set up a colony there, and begin terraforming it, so we could end up making it just very much similar like Earth, so we could actually live there and have a future there.
Interesting. So, how important was the Orion mission here? And I'm just reading over the specs, by the way. 3,600 miles in the space it went. 4.5 hour flight. I mean, you think about how far it went in just 4.5 hours, and then had to come back. I mean, that's pretty amazing, actually.
Right, and they also tested the capsule through an area right outside our Earth called the Van Allen belt.
Okay.
And that's an area that's known for having major radiation levels.
Right.
So by testing the capsule through there, that's a good way of testing how the capsule will fare, in the future and through deep space travel.
Okay. Very, very cool. So have you been following the New Horizons?
The New Horizons?
Yes, the space probe that they're about ready to turn on because it's approaching Pluto.
Yes, that is exciting. We're going to have the first ever pictures of Pluto soon.
And that's I'm just reading the stats here again. 9 years, 3 billion miles is how far this space probe has gone, and now they're just getting ready to fire it up so that in 2015, as it goes by Pluto, they will actually be able to document Pluto.
Yes, that is exciting. And also we have the Mars One colony, too. Have you heard about Mars One?
No.
Okay, so there is this private organization known as Mars One, and they're based in the Netherlands. And what their goal was to basically say, okay, NASA, you're taking too long. We're going to take it into our own hands, and we're going to actually self-fund our own missions to Mars and to colonize Mars. So what they did was they got a lot of publicity last year because they opened up this huge application process where over 200,000 people applied to become one of the first few colonists on this Mars colony.
And by the way, Jim's on that list.
Yeah.
Is he?
I am very much looking forward to it.
Oh, goody. Some kind of activity down there.
Yes, well, that might not be such a good thing because we actually ended up finding out recently. So originally, this Mars One colony got a lot of publicity last year because they had 200,000 people apply to become the first few colonists to go there. But the application process was actually very lengthy. You had to either be a doctor or this or that.
Wow.
They had certain criteria to fulfill for this colony, which made sense because if you're starting over again, wouldn't you want to make sure that you have a little bit of everything?
Sure.
A very talented doctor, maybe a hairstylist, maybe a personality like Jim over there.
I don't imagine there'd be much demand for my kind of work on Mars.
But the hairstylist would be okay. That's,
yeah.
I could use that.
Right. So with all this, right, people started really talking about the potential of, could this Mars One colony really work? And what happened was, I believe it was MIT, took all their plans, right, which included, they're very detailed about this whole Mars One plan and what their goal was. They actually planned on using SpaceX's capsules to get them there, to get them to Mars to do this colonization. But what was interesting is that Mars, was that SpaceX never said officially, or maybe not even knew of this Mars One plan. Meanwhile, Mars One was saying that they're going to use their capsules to get to Mars. So MIT, and I don't quote me on this, but I think it was MIT, said that if they go through with these plans, that they are definitely going to have some major problems.
All right, with that, everybody, after the break, Kate and I will continue to talk about Mars One and SpaceX, so come on back.
Right now, 28.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And joining us, Miss Metaverse Kate Aquino, and she was just finishing comments on Mars One and SpaceX, so take it away, Kate.
Hey there, sorry about that. It's just hard getting all this information in one show, right,
Sure.
Marlo?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
Alrighty, so basically what happened with this Mars One colony is that a group like MIT ended up really researching their plans to go colonize Mars, and they discovered that Mars One's plans might actually jeopardize the lives of those who end up going to Mars, because there are quite a few issues, which included getting there, but also a couple of issues where how do you supply oxygen on Mars? And if you're also growing plants and things like that, how do you ventilate the oxygen that you're pumping into your colony, right?
Oh, dear. I got the silly thing in reverse.
Sorry.
Definitely. So, I mean, there are a lot of things you got to think about when it comes to the future and colonizing other planets. Marlo, what do you think about the future in colonizing other planets?
Well, I obviously think that it is something that we have to do, because I agree with you. I think we have to, if humanity wants to survive, we have to be thinking about that catastrophic event that we might have, whether it's an asteroid or, like I said, an earthquake or what have you. I mean, you might get a couple of volcanoes that decide to go crazy and darken the earth for 20 years too, with volcanic ash. I mean, all those things can happen. And I think it's wise for us to be looking at, how do we survive those type of events, and obviously colonization, in another planet is.
We got that caldera
so.
sitting under Yellowstone, about 300-400 miles from here.
Yeah. I always wonder about that
just
too.
Just downwind of it too. How convenient for us.
Yeah, I mean we talk about where we're at being so safe, but all it would take is that. Wonderful little volcano sitting under Yellowstone to
start getting a case of the hiccups.
Yeah, exactly. So
the super volcano is something that a lot of people worry about, and I think that they're saying that it was not becoming active, but there are definitely there's some reasons that people started worrying about it. But overall, I mean, what would happen, do you think, if that were to happen, if it were to go off?
Well, it would be interesting. It would certainly be catastrophic in our neck of the woods, and of course,
I think we'd all be kissing our jobs goodbye.
Yeah. But of course, on a worldwide basis, I mean, if you block the sun out for 10 years, that would be significant, and just our way of life, air travel would cease to exist. I mean, the ability to even drive a car would be difficult for a while. I remember driving through just a couple of forest fires, and the amount of soot and stuff that the filters brought into the car. I mean, it's just amazing, just in a forest fire, how that works. In an ash situation, would make those vehicles almost useless after driving a few miles. So, pretty amazing stuff. So that, of course, you take that across the world. And how that would change our lives, and not being able to manufacture food or produce food.
A sort of a nuclear winter type scenario.
It would be a
where
scenario
all that stuff
way.
In the air, and the whole world, no joke, becomes North Dakota.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which for the world would be not a good situation.
Not a good thing. Yeah, not a good.
Yeah, and I think it would make sense actually to start crowdfunding maybe some technologies that could prevent just these kind of situations from being as catastrophic as they would be in the future.
Interesting idea. So let's talk a little bit about SpaceX. I wasn't aware until this morning that NASA gave them a $1.6 billion contract to carry cargo to space.
Right, and Bill Nye had something pretty interesting to say on Business Insider about that. He pretty much said that, in order for us to get excited about the future, we need to raise how much money we're actually funding these projects in. And he was pretty shocked to say that SpaceX had received this much funding. What do you think about that?
Well, it is interesting. What I find fascinating about it is that it is a step towards privatization of getting us to space. I mean, that's basically what it amounts to. And it's interesting that NASA would award this type of contract, because they're basically saying, in my opinion anyway, that the private enterprise can get it done better and less costly than they can do it themselves.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think that the privatization of space travel has been in the works for quite a few years now, and I think that it's definitely showing a lot of interest. I think the younger generations are getting really excited about the future of space through both Virgin and also through SpaceX. But I was pretty upset to see all the negative publicity about the Virgin Galactic test flight that went wrong recently.
Yeah. Right.
But I think that overall, someone's got to do it, and I think Elon Musk saw this opportunity and he's doing a good thing by it. He's making it happen. And I think that if things keep on going the way they are, we will get to Mars, and we'll probably get to Mars through SpaceX before NASA if we keep going the way we're going. And that's why NASA sees it, and they're investing in it.
Yep, yeah, and I agree with that. You know, the SpaceX contract, by the way, is 10 deliveries to the International Space Station for $1.6 billion. So it's basically delivering, $160 million at a crack. And they've already delivered, in fact, I think the fifth flight that they're taking is just in a couple days. So, they're halfway through their contract already with this. So, I haven't even heard about this until just like I said this morning when I was investigating this. It's amazing how little media there has been about this contract with SpaceX.
Right. It makes you wonder, right?
It does make you wonder a little bit, so very, very interesting. But I find it fascinating as well that the NASA is starting to collaborate with private enterprise with this type of stuff. And I actually should say that NASA's always been open to private enterprise. You think about all the things that have come about because of space exploration besides Tang. I mean, we have all kinds of crazy things that have happened. So you have to give our NASA a lot of credit. In fact, I talk about this a lot. I should get that list one of these days, but of the top 10 things that NASA has provided us, things like the rumble strips on our highways, that's a NASA thing, by the way.
Wow.
And they figure that about 70% less fatalities on roads that have rumble strips. And the reason that came about is because when the space shuttle were to land, the astronauts couldn't see the runway.
Yeah.
So they had to figure out a way so that if it started veering off the runway a little bit, that the astronauts could correct the space shuttle. So they put these rumble strips down the side, and now it's becoming just mainstream everywhere. So just one little thing about that. So anyway, any other comments, Kate, on SpaceX?
I think there's a lot of exciting things happening right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
So,
for sure,
So I think, we're getting up to the end of the show here. We have to start plugging our CES stuff a little bit. And that is coming up in, believe it or not, just 3 weeks, Jim.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to be in Vegas. You're going to be here. I know you feel excited about that.
Yeah, way to Las Vegas, baby.
But we are going to be covering a lot of stuff. Now, Kate, you said you're starting to book a lot of interviews already?
There are so many interviews that have been hitting my inbox. It's been crazy. Marlo, the event's huge.
Now, I know that if you've never covered CES before, I know it's exciting to get all this stuff in your inbox, by the way, but I will tell you from personal experience, you will overbook and underperform.
Oh, yeah. But that's why I've got you, Marlo.
Yeah,
we're gonna go out there and rock it.
It is almost impossible to keep an appointment at CES. I'm just telling you, especially if you have to go across the complex or something and you give yourself 15 minutes or a half hour, you might as well just determine or say that, you should almost be like the cable repair guy. I'll be there between noon and 4, because that's how bad it is there. So I'm just warning you as you're making these appointments for interviews that they have to give you a little leeway. And if there's season, they'll know that too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
sure.
It should be exciting. So what are you looking forward to seeing there?
There's a lot of really great things that I've been hearing about. There's a lot of 3D technology, VR is going to be there, but I'm really interested in seeing what kind of robotics are going to be there. Honestly, I mean that's something that you don't really see at a lot of these shows, especially here in New York.
Okay.
And today I'm going to get a little bit of a preview of what might be there because I'm going to be shooting one of my episodes of Awesome Future at tonight's Internet of Things event in New York City, which was sold out within the first day that it went live on
Wow.
meetup.com.
So tell us a little bit about this event. I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, it's meetup.com has been kind of really gathering together a lot of tech people in the city, and this specific meetup group is the IoT NYC meetup, and there was about probably 16 to 1,700 members in the group, and they ended up getting this huge event together at Google which was going to feature Samsung, Verizon, IEEE, and a bunch of other really great partners and sponsors. So, I was really looking forward to going to Google today, but unfortunately at the last second they had a change of venues. So we're going to be shooting at Digital Sandbox is the location.
Okay.
And it's down in Tribeca in New York City. And so it's going to be great.
Great. Well, we look forward to hearing a report about that next week. I bet you're going to come back with all kinds of great things about the Internet of Things. So, Kate, again, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Barlow.
Everybody have a great week. We'll see you again next Monday.